Hola. Okay, so we are trying this for the second time. Actually, I tried this earlier today. Let's give a second too until Mr. Frigidaire finishes filling up his tank, because these are one of those that make their own ice. But anyway, excuse the light above. I'll adjust the light as we go along. But this was just the intro to kind of start out the episode. So this is the long lost Kitumbuwa episode. We promised you guys a episode for kina Kitumbuwa and all that nonsense. But this is the long lost Kitumbuwa episode. So I actually tried to do this earlier. I did it, but as you know, fellow peasant is a bit of a lumpen, So this 70D here, it has its own onboard camera, rather microphone, but in my greatest wisdom, I decided to put on the external microphone, and I forgot to turn it on. So basically, when I was reviewing the footage, everything turned out like the footage was fine, but there was no sound. So this is take two, So I'm actually doing this second time. So I'm actually going to film this the second time. So and before, I'd actually forgotten to put in one important ingredient. Let me actually flip the camera around and show you. These walnuts, what we're going to do is we're going to use these walnuts, and these walnuts will be part of what we'll put in there to allow us to get some richness out of the Kitumbuwa. Some of you may say, hey, the traditional Bitumbuwa don't even have anything kind of like that. So we're breaking that mold, and we're doing something different, where we will actually have, let me flip around here. We'll actually have really good sort of flavor and taste to it, because your traditional Bitumbuwa is things like just regular ngano flour, white flour with sugar, with salt, with a bit of butter, eggs, you name it, sugar, etc., etc. But we're not going to use any of that. The only difference is what's common here. We'll be using some eggs, yes. We won't be using any milk. We won't be using any butter. We won't be using any sugar. So we'll just be using other ingredients which are, a bit more friendly to your health. So I'll lay out the ingredients and then I'll be right back. So Kakati, we're back, and we have assembled our ingredients. Let me just run you through them and show you what's going on. Okay, Kati. Here's our set of ingredients. Let me just flip this around and show you. Okay, so what we have here, obviously, is your eggs. You can see your eggs, okay? Then these are the walnuts I was telling you about, okay? You have your whole wheat flour. We're using olive oil to just, basically go about, taking our, food brush and going and brushing the tins, to kind of coat them. Lightly coat them, sort of, so we don't actually use the oil inside, inside the Bitumbuwa. It's just basically to coat those pans over there, so that we don't have problems sort of removing, the Bitumbuwa when we're done baking them. We're using oatmeal, as you can tell. This is just your regular oatmeal, which you can find in supermarkets anywhere. This you might have a problem finding in some of our local villages over there. It may not be readily available, but in case it is, this is really good to have. Just whole wheat flour. If you don't have whole wheat flour, you can use regular, but you can just make sure that you put in some oatmeal. If you don't have oatmeal, if the only thing you have available, and I'm repeating this, actually, let me even look at you properly. If the only thing you have available is just regular wheat flour, here's what you can do. You can play around with the ingredients. You can play around with the different kinds of flours. when I was, back in the chalo there, in the village there, I was using things like, let's say, if you go to some of those places where they grind the maize to make a maize meal, what you do is you buy just your own maize from the market, and you take it there and you ask them not to filter it. So everything, the skin, the bran, everything is included in. So that's way healthier than eating just the maize, which is completely white, where they have removed the bran, they have removed all the good nutrients. So therefore, you are stuck with just this white thing inside, which is not, it may taste good, but it's not that healthy for you. So the entire part of the maize is good for you. So if you don't have access to things like whole wheat flour, if you don't have access to things like the oatmeal, what you can do is any kinds of grains, sorghum grain, a little bit is okay. The millet is really good. Millet is really excellent. Of course, you have to temper it. So what you do is you take a bit of things like the cassava flour, you take a bit of like the maize flour, which is complete, which has everything in it. You take a little bit of the sorghum or something like that, and you mix it in with the white wheat flour. So that way you still maintain that texture, because the wheat flour is important, only because it has, wheat flour has this element in it which allows it to flex. I think it's called, I forget off the top of my head. I'll include it in the description, but scientifically that element allows it to be able to stretch and raise a bit core. So that way it is. Let me actually look. I'm looking at this lens. This lens is a bit funky, right? Let me clean this lens and come right back. Sorry, I had to actually perform a bit of cleaning. As you can tell, yours truly is Katuyo, Kaswet, but that's to be expected when you're joining yourself in the kitchen as a guy. Bachelor life is okay for a certain time, but sometimes you have to, get into the kitchen and piga jiko, so that you can be able to sort yourself out. Anyway, back to the topic. I was saying that when you play around with different ingredients like that, you're able to actually have, excuse me, this, the ingredients here is one thing at it, but the camera is also a bit funky, right? So you have to be able to clean as you go. So anyway, the idea is once you're able to play around with different ingredients, that's for the dried ingredients. And like I said, what we're doing here is we're using baking soda. Okay, baking soda. You ask me baking soda instead of baking powder. Baking soda is a natural product. The difference between this and baking powder is baking powder has some artificial ingredients which are added in to sort of allow it to react, make that chemical reaction so that things can rise. But the additives in there may not be too kosher. They may not be too friendly for your system in the long run. So you want to kind of stay away from those things to kind of be healthy. So when you use baking soda is an alkaline. In order to help it rise, you need an acid. So for the acid, what I'll be using is this, it's yogurt. Yogurt is acidic, but also it's also good. It also provides a good flavor. So if you go into the stores, I'm sure for those of you who have access to like supermarkets or whatever, you have your own versions and brands of yogurt. This I'm using non-fat yogurt because, like I said, you want to keep it like low fat and healthy. But even regular yogurt is fine, because even I remember as kids when we used to be in the villages, grandparents, parents, that kind of thing, when we used to be around the places where they keep cows, they make their own yogurt. The so-called bongo. Bongo is a proper good yogurt. So you can still use your bongo. It still has that element of acid in it, so it's proper good. Okay? And then the other element that I'm also using is applesauce. So applesauce is also good because it provides you a bit of acidity, but also it complements the bananas and helps you give that flavor to it. So my mixing bowl, my what I'm call this? I'm so forgetful. your blender is what you use to koroga, to chop up the oatmeal, so you can actually make it into that flour. So then again, the walnuts, we roasted them earlier, so they're nice and crispy and toast, and they're cooled down. So what we're going to end up doing is actually cracking them into smaller bits so that we can actually have them bite-sized. So we'll get into that. Anyway, without further ado, let's start. Let's start our due diligence. Cut. I take my whole wheat flour, dump it in my mixing bowl, and I'm putting that away. Okay, and so that also to start getting rid of some things, I'm going to take my walnuts. I'm going to take my walnuts like so. So I wonder if the light is proper good. But I'm going to take my walnuts like so. And so you see what you can use a blender or something like that. But for me, because I like the pieces a bit rough, so what I do is I grab it with my hands like this and go and just crunch it. And you just crunch it in there. You can use like both hands or something like that. You can go like that, so that you actually create that sort of rough but decent sized pieces. So you don't want them too big, but at the same time also you don't want them like, because if I throw them in the blender, what will happen is they'll become like sort of powder, which is it will have a very funny texture to it. So you want them like this, where you can still actually taste them. So you grab them by a handful. So these are really good. So if you can find them in your local store, if you can find them in your supermarkets, if you can find them in the market, they're really good. If you don't have walnuts, you can substitute things like chopped up almonds, chopped up peanuts, chopped up in our village places there we call them ground nuts, like peanuts. So you actually take all that stuff and dump it in there, because all that's part of the goodness. It's always good to clean as you go. That way you don't wake up at the end of this process and you're like completely flabbergasted as to why the place looks like a disaster. And then when the madam comes home, she's like, hey, what did you do? So anyway, to behave, you have to kind of clean as you go, do the right thing. So when you crunch them with your hands like this, some pieces will crunch easy, some pieces will be bigger. If they're bigger, it's okay, because walnuts are one of those nuts which are very soft. They're very soft. I come in, and at this point in time, it doesn't hurt. You can throw in your baking powder, but rather baking soda. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a trick. I'm going to take this baking soda and throw it in with the oatmeal. That way, what we have is it will be evenly distributed. So as the oatmeal is being chopped up, it's being evenly distributed. So I'll go ahead and put it in of now, just to get rid of it. Another flavor profile you can actually add in is, what I'm adding in here is it is nutmeg. This nutmeg, these are very flavorful spices. So you can use them for your tea, you can use them for your hot beverages, and so on and so forth. If you have nutmeg, you can use nutmeg. If you have cinnamon, you can use cinnamon. If you have a bit of clove, you can use a bit of clove. If you have cardamom, you can use cardamom. If you have ground ginger, you can use ground ginger. For those who don't have access to all those different ingredients, what you do is you put in like where there's that tropical heat you find in the supermarket. You can use that, which is like tea masala. You can use that, so it just gives it a nice bit of flavor. So I'll take that, and you don't, not too much, just enough to kind of give it a bit of a smile in there. So what we do is we're done with that, and we just roughly just mix to kind of move it around and make it even, make it proper. And you notice, again, I'm telling you folks that you're not using anything to do with butter, you're not using anything to do with sugar, you're not using anything to do with like heavy cream or anything like that. The olive oil, like I said before, when we use the olive oil, we were using it just to brush the pans and kind of give them that a little bit of that easiness, so that when you go to pull out your Kitumbuwa out of the pan, it's proper nice. So while we're looking at that, let me just show you what I've done with the oven. So I have preheated the oven and left it, let's say, at around 295 through to, I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can touch the screen. It's roughly like around 295, 300. You preheat it. So because I was already roasting the walnuts in there, so it helped me to kind of give it that time to kind of preheat. So as I am mixing this and good, it's almost good to go. What I'll do is I'll put this aside, and I'll put the eggs aside, and I'll bring in my blender. You get. So when I bring in my blender, I plug it in. If you have a food processor, even better, because food processor has bigger blades, you chop quicker. I don't, at this point in time, I don't have a food processor. That's something that we can get into later on when we have bigger space and better resources to work with. So now that we're done with that, we're going to start blending our oatmeal. You get, chopping it up. So you notice I made show you here that I was using my spoon to kind of help me move it around, because sometimes like what happens is when you are using your blender and such, what happens is that it creates an air pocket in the bottom, and the oatmeal is not moving around, but the blade is spinning, and so nothing is moving. So I just use the spoon on top to kind of move it around. But again, when you do like something like this, you have to be very careful, because safety first. I think we're there. So the consistency that you want is something like this. You get, that's the kind of consistency you want, So it has blended it into a kind of like a powder, and that's the kind of consistency you want, That's the kind of consistency you want. So remember, I had thrown in, my baking soda, and so once I move this out of the way, let me unplug it, put it this side like here, like so, and I'm going to bring out, mixing bowl right here, and I'm going to dump all that in there. You get. So what happens is sometimes obviously all the time is you can see that you get some goodness left in the bottom. So what I do is I take my spoon and go like that, and as you can see, it helps to remove it proper. And Miss B is always accusing me of being cheap, but for me, it's not being cheap. It's actually being very proper good, because guess what? It's like saying when we were kids. Remember how they used to make posho? They used to make ugali, like your auntie or uncle, the house manager or whoever. So used to make ugali and stuff like that. And for us, the best part was always like that big crust at the bottom there, which was proper good, It's nice and crunchy and proper good. And in fact, for me, I used to be one of those naughty ones who would kind of get that, We used to call it membe, We used to call it membe. It used to be a membe or something like that, or in some areas they call it. It was a poor man's chapo, you get. So once you keep it like overnight or something like that, you come back, it's nice and soft and chewy. It's proper good. So now, as you can see, this is incorporating all the dry ingredients. The dry ingredients is once you have the oatmeal, the whole wheat flour, the walnuts, the bit of baking soda, tiny bit of salt. There's no sugar, there's nothing sweetening in there. So these are the dry ingredients. So once you're finished with the dry ingredients, you've mixed it nice. It's all incorporated together. It's all mixed together. It's all nice and happy together. You take it and put it to the side. You get. So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare. We're going to prepare the wet ingredients. So I'll bring back my trusty blender, and so it's time for the wet ingredients. So like I said, we're using eggs, okay? So I'm putting in 3 eggs. For those of you who prefer it a bit more custardy or has that kind of eggy flavor, that's up to you. Use 3 eggs. 3 eggs seems to be a good number. You get. They seem to be a good number. Matter of fact, in this one, since I used 3 eggs before, let me go in and grab and use 1 more egg. So make it 4 eggs. You get. So that eggs, the quintessential ingredient, anything to do with cakes, is the combination is always things like sugar, butter, eggs, cream or milk or whatever, plus flour equals some kind of cake, some kind of cookie, some kind of something like that. So, but here eggs will help us. As you can see, the eggs, will go in there first so that it can create that sort of liquidy base. You get, can go there and create liquidy base. So the next item up, what I'll put in is, remember what we're talking about, our yogurt. Yogurt is very good because what it does is it will create that acidic base, which will help us to be the counteractive ingredient, which will help our our Bitumbuwa rise, so it will get that element. So once we put the yogurt in there, we're going to go in again and add in our applesauce. Applesauce is also good because, like I said, apples are excellent. They help you with your digestion. They're really good for you. The saying that an apple a day keeps the doctor away is true. It's true. It's really good for you. So once you have all three ingredients in there, the only thing left to do is to add your bananas. You get. So I'm going to add the bananas and show you once I'm done. Anyway, so once I've put this in, as you can see, it's stuffed full. You get bananas, eggs, applesauce, yogurt, and those are your dry ingredients. So Miss B has arrivé, and I'll show her to you in a jiffy. But we're happy to see her. She's back from the salt mines. And
salt mines.
Yes. So
But what's taking you out?
Yes, we're going to go out. We're going to go out. But what we're going to do is.
How do you know that you were going to go out? Because I just came up with the idea.
See, Miss B is very good at spur of the moment, and it's it's good. It's good to go with the flow, eh? But it's good to see her. She's back home.
I thought that.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing.
Okay. Anyvel, as she gets ready, of course, she has to get out of her garb, as it were, and then we can put her on camera. But like I said, let me just finish up blending the wet ingredients. Then we'll mix them with dry ingredients. We'll put them in our pans, stick it in the oven, and just go from there. Anyway, let's continue blending. Okay, so our mix is done. It looks like a custard. It looks like it's a mix of the bananas, the yogurt, the applesauce, the eggs, and so it kind of has a texture to it. It looks like a custard. So what we do is we're going to take our wet ingredients like so, and we just dump them straight into our dry ingredients because this is what has everything that we need to do. Now, a word sort of encouragement here you get. So what happens here is this is not sort of one of those exact what you call them, the recipes where it has to be exact 1 cup of this, 1 cup of that. Again, I said to you guys, like it's all about your own feeling. If you feel like this is something that is not sweet enough for you, I mean, play around with it. Come and find something that sort of fits your palate or fits your taste or whatever it is. So just play around with it. Do something that you feel you can kind of meet your needs or your expectations or so on and so forth. So what we do is we are folding the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients like so. Again, the good thing about this oatmeal, it's very forgiving. When you mix it with the whole wheat flour, the two sort of come together to form a really nice base. And again, this is sort of our batter that has the whole wheat in it. It has the oatmeal in it. It has the bananas in it. It has the applesauce in it. It has the yogurt in it. It has the eggs in it. So you're looking at a good thick. So I like this one. I like it. Some people might say it may be a bit too thick for you. It's sort of loose for you. It's it's all about your preference, whatever your preference is. And so you mix it until such a point when you feel like, okay, Obviously, you don't want to mix it too much because then sometimes it gives you that thing where it deflates like a souffle or whatever. But since these are they're very hearty ingredients, you will get a good result out of it. And so I'm okay with it. I'm very happy with it. I think this is a good thick consistency. It will give us sort of really good thick bitumbuwas. I like it a bit on the not too heavy side, so that way, it's easier to digest. So now that that's looking good, we're going to bring out our pans and, set them out. So we lift up our, our big chip pan, big chip mixer. Then we're going to start filling up our little, kubis, little holes, So since everything is filled up here, I have the right amount in there that will be proper good with all the head and everything like that. So the first one is done. I'll go ahead and finish the second one. And if you want to stay with me, please do. As you can tell, I'm one of those people who is proper cheap. I need to finish out everything. Like you say, there's a coffee company that has a logo that says good to the last drop. I'm also one of the, I have to have all my nyamebos completely finished. I'm one of those who used to clean the plate with my tongue so that it was nice and clean. So there was almost no need to wash it. Of course, we know that's not true because they are germs, so you need to be clean. But anyway, now that that is done, so we're going to take them. We're going to stick them in the oven like so. Timer for 30 minutes. Okay, we set our timer for 30 minutes, and then we hit start, and so wait until it counts down to 30. So let me do the cleanup here, and then we'll get back. We'll get back when it's close to being done cooking. As you can tell, these kinds of activities, they give you proper katuyo. So it's all good. It's still part of your being healthy. So we'll see you on the other side of the 30 minutes. So kakati, this is take 2. Remember, I had some thing here. Where is it? Right there. Keeps on. Anyway, so this is take 2. Such a long pen. I had made the first attempt, but the first attempt was okay. The footage was fine, but because there wasn't there was a microphone there, but it wasn't turned on, so the footage obviously is useless. So I'm doing this a second time. So the timer here, it just went off. So we're going to reach in and pull out the Bitumbuwa. So this here goes. So as you can see, they've just come out, and this is take 2. So as I was showing you before, especially with this pan, with this pan you can reach in. Don't worry, my hands are clean. So you can reach in. Normally they tell you to wait until they've cooled down a bit. So what happens is they shrink very slightly, so you're able to pull them out, no problem. But with this pan, it's so good that if you put a little bit of olive oil on the side, plus it's a non-stick pan, you go like so, and it's proper good. It's nice and crispy on the bottom. It's proper. It's proper good. So as you can see, so this one is a bit cantankerous. It takes, I think it's still it gets stuck in the middle, so we have to kind of give it some time so it can cool off. But with this one is excellent. So you just I left it in for 30 minutes at it was like 295 300. But if you don't like it this nice and crisp on the bottom, or what I recommend is you reduce the flame to 285 275, and you leave it in for 18 minutes as opposed to 20 minutes. Maybe, okay, actually that math is wrong. Let me come back. What you do is you leave it in for at 275, you leave it in for 30 minutes, what happens is it still cooks, but it doesn't get as crispy. So on the bottom, so as you can see, the goon becomes crispy. But anyway, so if I take this and sort of set it up for you, you can see is I just lost one. So this goon is very slippery. As you can see, it's proper good, proper good. And this you have with your, you have with your chai, you have with your juice, whatever. It's very nice for breakfast with like one egg or something like that, some fruit. Proper good. So please be healthy, eat healthy. Just simple ingredients: bananas, applesauce, whole wheat flour, etc., etc. Excellent, really excellent for you. So this helps you. You can eat like one of these in the morning, with some chai and some fruit and whatever, and you're sorted. You just have like a light lunch, salad, whatever, then dinner. This is heavy because what happens is ingredients like this, they stay in your stomach longer, so it helps you be fuller, and you don't crave stuff like to eat other stuff so that you can supplement. So this is a good. So let me actually let me do something, then come and sign off. So again, this is sign off, and this episode will be posted hopefully maybe tonight, and I'll leave the recipe in the description. Again, there is no exact science, so you do what it is you feel is meeting your preferences, is meeting your needs, etc., etc. You can make it a bit more of this, a bit less of that, add in something that you like. Those who can't do without sugar, I still recommend you don't put in too much. Those who can't do without butter, still I recommend that because applesauce and the banana substitute for the butter, see, it makes the Kitumbuwa nice and soft. So these are excellent when you leave them to like cool overnight and you have them like the next day. It's proper good. So again, healthy, eat good, work out, be happy, be healthy. So this is me saying auf geht's, Olieta, eat good, and enjoy more of these miracles. So pieces and Olieta.